thinking about a team that struggles to win, you often picture a team with little talent, poor coaching, and that has been struggling for years. You don't think of a team that was in the Super Bowl just a few seasons before, a team with Pro Bowlers and All-Pros. How could such a team struggle to win? It is a difficult question to answer, one that the 1982 Denver Broncos sure wish they could have figured out. From the mid to late 1970s, the Denver Broncos were a powerhouse team. They were led by stars including Otis Armstrong, Lyle Alzado, Bill Thompson, Randy Grandishar, and commanded by veteran quarterback Craig Morton. From 1976 to 1981, the Broncos didn't succumb to a losing season and saw 3 playoffs within this time. In 1977, they made it to the Super Bowl after finishing the regular season with a 12-2 record, but they were no match for Landry's Cowboys. The Broncos were a pretty cutthroat team, one to spend no time losing. After going 8-8 in 1980 and finishing in 4th place, the Broncos fired head coach Red Miller. In Miller's 4-year tenure with the Broncos, he only missed 1 playoff. Missing 1 playoff was enough to make him lose his job. In 1981, the Broncos turned over the power of the head coaching position to Dan Reeves, a former offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, the same Dallas Cowboys that defeated the Broncos in the Super Bowl just shortly before. Under Coach Reeves, little changed personnel-wise, and the Broncos finished the season 10-6, falling in 2nd place in the AFC West and missing the playoffs after a disappointing Week 16 loss to the 6-10 Chicago Bears. Craig Morton struggled to find success in the 6-degree game in Chicago, and after throwing 3 interceptions, was benched and replaced by backup Steve DeBerg. DeBerg would throw for 2 touchdowns, but 2 touchdowns was not sufficient to hold off the Bears. Heading into the 1982 season, the Denver Broncos were viewed favorably after coming off a 10-6 season in 1981. To begin the 1982 season, the Denver Broncos took on their division rival San Diego Chargers at Mile High Stadium. After Denver fumbled 3 times in the first half, they found themselves in a close game at halftime, only being down 3 points by a score of 6-3. To begin the 3rd quarter, Denver quarterback Craig Morton threw an interception, and shortly after, threw another one. Morton was benched for Steve DeBerg, and the Broncos went on to lose by a score of 23-3. In Week 2 of the 1982 season, the Broncos took on the 49ers at home. The 49ers were coming off a Week 1 loss to the Los Angeles Raiders, a game where they narrowly lost 23-17. In the first half, the game started off a bit ugly. The Broncos fumbled on their first possession, but quickly got it back after an interception by Aaron Kyle. This lasted only a short while before Craig Morton was intercepted by San Francisco, leading Montana to throw a 46-yard pass to Freddie Solomon to go up 7-0 in the first. While Denver fans were growing frustrated, Rick Upchurch wasn't, and had a 67-yard punt return to put Denver even with the reigning Super Bowl champs. By halftime, the 49ers led Denver by a score of 21-14. It should be mentioned that Steve DeBerg had taken over for Craig Morton after Morton was hit with 2 blindside tackles. In the second half of the game, San Francisco failed to get it together. After getting into the Bronco territory twice, they failed to score and missed 2 field goal attempts. The Broncos held it together and sparked a comeback courtesy of a 37-yard touchdown pass to Rick Upchurch. After a Dennis Smith interception late in the 4th quarter, the Broncos stormed down the field, and after a 17-yard field goal by Rich Carlis with 3 seconds remaining, the Broncos would go on to defeat the 49ers 24-21. On September 20th, 1982, the NFL Players Association went on a strike that lasted in spite of the recent agreements between revenue sharing between NFL owners and broadcasting companies. The Players Association believed that they should see 55% of the revenue, and the owners disagreed. A settlement was reached between the Owners and Players Association, and on November 16th, the strike ended. As a result of the strike, the 1982 NFL season was shortened to 9 games, where 8 teams from each conference would make the playoffs. On November 20th, 1982, the Denver Broncos took on the Seattle Seahawks in Denver, the first game the Broncos played in over 2 months. The Seahawks came into the game 0-2, and the Broncos were ready to put themselves ahead to 2-1. After a relatively slow game, the Broncos found themselves ahead by a score of 10-7 going into the 4th quarter. After accomplishing little offensively, the Seahawks tied the game up after a field goal. With little time remaining, the Seahawks came back once again, this time with an 80-yard drive to win the game by a score of 17-10. The next couple of games for the Broncos followed a similar pattern as their game against Seattle. In Week 12 against the Chargers, the Broncos had an opportunity to breach a 20-17 deficit in the 4th quarter. Instead, they allowed the Chargers to score 10 in the 4th, while they struggled to just get a field goal. A similar situation came in Week 13, where they were down 24-20 before giving up 10 to the Falcons in the fourth. But Week 14, the Broncos managed to get a win against the 1-4 Rams, moving their record to 2-4 with 3 games left in the season. Although their playoff odds were slim, they still could have had a chance to make something happen. Instead, they let themselves go and lost their last 3 games. In Week 15, they got blown out by the 1-4 Chiefs. In Week 16 by the Raiders, who they trailed 27-0 going into halftime. After losing to the Seahawks in Week 17, the Broncos finished the season 2-7, last place in the AFC West. The 1982 season was bizarre, not only from being strike-shortened to 9 games, but to how teams performed. The Super Bowl reigning 49ers finished the season just 3-6. The next season, that same 49er team would go on to the AFC Championship, and the season after that, a Super Bowl victory, after going 15-1 in the regular season. On top of the oddities of the season, the 1982 NFL MVP was Redskins' Mark Moseley, who was a kicker. As far as the Denver Broncos go, they were able to figure it out. They drafted a quarterback in the 1983 draft, and soon after, the landscape of the Denver Broncos was forever changed. That quarterback was John Elway, and from what I heard, he was pretty good.